Hello, and this is the Apocalypse Will Be podcasted. We are a married couple from Atlanta with boring day jobs. We have been together 12 years, and we usually create a lot of weird performance art to entertain people. But we are trying our hand at having a podcast because we have had an obsession lately, and that obsession is Dungeon Crawler Carl. This is a spoilers podcast, and we will be discussing plot points from all 7 Dungeon Crawler Carl books. You should not start this podcast until you have finished book 7. We will not be discussing anything from Patreon or the Pineapple Cabaret. There are spoilers from this point forward. Be warned.
Welcome, Crawler. Welcome to Faction Wars.
It's quite an intro, both for a book and for a podcast.
It really is. I don't know about you, but my first time hearing that, it gave me literal goosebumps. I was just like, we're here. We made it.
One of the things I really like about the series is I think it did a very good job of building hype around floors 6 and floors 9. And I think that the payoff was absolutely worth it.
100% agree. So worth it. I'm so excited to finally get into chapter 1, start really diving into this thing. Because after chapter 1, it is just go, 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 go the entire time.
Well, let's get going and talk about the chapter then.
Awesome. So right after that awesome intro, we learned that there are 30 days left on the floor or until someone wins Faction Wars. That means possibly nobody could win, and I wonder if that's ever happened in a previous season of Faction Wars.
I think there's the possibility because there are very specific conditions that have to be met. And I have enjoyed learning more about other crawls from bringing in the crawlers from the outside. And hopefully we will continue to learn more about other crawls.
Yeah, so some of those conditions maybe never being met, like, yeah, maybe no one wins.
Maybe everyone dies.
Maybe everyone dies. I mean, obviously in other seasons, like, everyone could die, but they just regenerate. But it would be interesting if nobody won, and then that would be kind of a big blow for the factions in those systems of government because there's so much glory behind winning faction wars.
Would definitely be embarrassing for everyone.
I think it would be quite embarrassing for everyone, and the AI would be so happy. Cool. So we've got a view count, which we haven't really had those much in recent books. They kind of did away with that.
I think that this serves a purpose here in that first they give you the amount of followers and the amount of favorites and the amount of views. And then they give you the amount of crawlers that are left. And I think that those numbers are meant to stand in contrast to each other. So can you read out those numbers for us?
Yes. So views, 231 septillion. Followers, 887 quadrillion. Favorites, 420 quadrillion. Haha, 420. Was that on purpose, Matt?
Yeah, I don't really care at all about any numbers past a certain point, and that number is probably about 500 million, but I know you want to geek out a little bit about it to put it in perspective.
I love big numbers. I find them extremely fascinating. I read like a mini novel about a Googleplex. So a septillion is quite big. To give you kind of an example and put that into context, the observable universe is about 880 septillion meters wide. So 231 septillion, how many views they have, is about a quarter as wide as the universe in meters. A sphere containing a septillion gallons of water would be about 19,000 kilometers wide, which is 50% larger than the Earth itself.
In remaining crawlers, 32,000, but that is still a huge number. Usually it's give or take about less than 10K. So a lot of people have survived, but just the amount of people watching versus who is still in the game is really stunning.
It really is, but I think regardless, even if there was a 500,000 crawlers left, I think that those views and those numbers for Carl and Donut would still probably be about where they are.
So something that I thought was absolutely hilarious is that Carl gets informed that he can pick up the gate of the feral gods in a mailbox like it was a freaking Amazon package.
Here you go, right on your doorstep.
Curtains and a gate of the feral god.
Here you go.
Now that we are finally into chapter 1, which I'm sorry we keep bringing this up, but those prologue chapters were rough. But now that we're here, we're going to be mostly going through point by point as far as what is interesting to us in the chapter.
Yes. So I coming into this, I was like, wait, how and why exactly was the Princess Posse able to purchase a spot in Faction Wars? That's a historical thing that's never happened before. So I did some research. Originally, the Dreadnoughts had a spot in Faction Wars, but they pulled out after Carl destroyed their army using the Gate of the Feral Gods several books ago. Then the Burrowers were going to take that open slot, but they dropped out when news of them chucking infant AIs into stars came to the AI of this dungeon. And I guess they thought the AI wouldn't take so kindly to that.
I believe they thought correctly. It's mentioned several times that AIs don't usually become primitive or feral this early.
Mm-mm.
But because this one has sooner than expected, they probably thought either no one would find out about them chucking baby AIs into stars or that they would be dealing with a more stable AI at this point than what the current reality of the situation is.
Just to clarify, also, the Burrowers are the Mantids. The Mantids are the people who oversee construction of AIs. So that left a slot open for Faction Wars. Another point that happens, and I'm not 100% sure if this is actually a factor, but I'm pretty sure it is that Carl received stock certificates and pictures of each of the Faction War participants' moms from a summary judgment loot box. And because he received those stock certificates, that gave him a tax-paying citizen status, which elevated him to a different level above a typical crawler. And that actually gave him some legal rights because he has ownership or stake in multiple different factions of alien governments.
I think that that could be a factor. I also think that it's a possibility that there were never any rules against a crawler being able to buy a spot. It's just no one's ever had access to the money before, and, Donut is a record setter as far as how much money she has. Carl certainly doesn't have enough money for this.
No, he does not. His net worth is about 115 credits with those stock certificates that he has. But yeah, it's true. As far as we've seen, it does not specifically state anywhere in the books that a crawler cannot purchase a slot or a team in Faction Wars.
No, and I think that those stocks may be saying up some other things as well.
Definitely. I mean, most things are setting up other things in these books, and we don't always know where it's going to go. Regardless of Carl having some kind of tax-paying status outside of the dungeon allows them to be able to buy a spot in Faction Wars. What absolutely does is Donut being on the board of directors for the Princess Posse or the Society for the Eradication of Cocker Spaniels, which is mentioned by Quasar in The Butcher's Masquerade.
Yeah, and, I think it's pretty cool that in The Butcher's Masquerade, when they bring Jennifer, the head of the Princess Posse, to meet Carl, and she says she has a message for Donut. Her message is basically, "We are working as hard as we can to eradicate Cocker Spaniels. It has been expensive, but I believe that we will be successful." And that is a coded message where she is telling Donut, "Hey, like, we think we are going to be able to buy a spot. It has been much more than we expected, though."
Right. Yeah, so I definitely didn't pick up on that. Bree kind of pointed out that that was a coded message. So the Society for the Eradication of Cocker Spaniels was able to crowdfund the funds, which is 150 million credits, which is about how much it cost to buy a planet. The announcement for the Princess Posse having a spot in Faction Wars was announced at the end of the Butcher's Masquerade. And to just be clear, the Society for the Eradication of Cocker Spaniels and the Princess Posse are the same entity. It's just
Think of it like a DBA.
it actually is exactly a DBA, the Society for the Eradication of Cocker Spaniels, doing business as Princess Posse. Okay, we established how they got a spot. So next, let's cover briefly. We're going to try and keep this brief. The overview rules of Faction Wars.
Okay. So it opens during the second floor, but there's no fighting until the crawlers arrive.
Mhm.
So there's a bunch of people just kind of chilling, drinking, gambling, killing time. Interestingly enough, they don't seem to be leveling up very much. It seems like only really the crawlers need to do that. Like, this just seems like very chill country club vibes.
They do level up and such, but a lot of what they do is the kind of the leaders are the ones that are leveling up, and they bring this war chest, which is a set amount of supplies that they're able to bring in with them. And most of that is things like level up and like skill point increase potions, or like very small, very powerful items. So that's all preparations. Then there's the ceasefire that starts once the floor opens up and expires after 60 hours or until canceled. It can be canceled if a warlord is killed or a team is eliminated, which is what ends up happening.
Yep.
After that is the ramp up, which is a good portion of the book. I would say nearly a third of the book is the ramp up.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Yeah. And a lot of stuff definitely happens during the ramp up, but I found myself a little frustrated because it just kept being like, we can't do offensive magic. We can't teleport. And I'm like, but you have all this really cool offensive magic.
Yeah, that's kinda supposed to be the point.
Right. Now they can still get into combat with each other, hand to hand, things like that, but they can only enter into each other's territory through designated corridors. Once they go through that, they are able to traverse around in that territory however they want. The exception there is scouts, right?
And spies,
Scouts and spies. Ellie is the main scout for Princess Posse.
which makes sense just because she can fly.
Flying is definitely a very helpful skill for being a scout, and she's very small. After that is open hostilities. I don't think there are really very many rules in place for the open hostilities. They last until either there's 4 teams remaining or 90 hours left on the floor.
Yeah,
And that's basically what I wrote is all hell breaks loose.
that's true.
After open hostilities is the peeling of the Larracos. And that's usually when the city ends up getting destroyed. And that's what drove Priestley, one of the former cookbook authors, to his breaking point to see such a beautiful city just be destroyed.
He was really obsessed with Larracos, and kind of the vibe that I get from this is very Lord of the Rings inspired, where they talk about the great cities and how people like wait their whole lives to gaze upon them. And there's definitely some literary allusions to that in here.
Oh, that's really interesting. I hadn't considered that. So the NPCs are going to have to hold the castle in the Rockos. Normally, I'm pretty sure that nobody would already be holding the castle. Um,
Correct. I
there
think
is
that somebody would have to like normally storm in and take control of it and then hold it as opposed to them having it to defend.
so because there's an NPC team, they were assigned to the Rockos, and that makes them the defending team,
Which
which
is
kind of makes sense.
it is, but I also think it's a little pedantic of the AI of like just because Laracos is NPC capital, let's call it, doesn't mean that they had to give it to them to defend. They could have just made the map, bigger.
Yeah, but it's cooler this way. They
There,
already do make the map bigger.
and I think there are some complaints about how much work that was.
Yes, there definitely were. So the attacking team has to take it from the defending team, hold it for 6 hours. The defending team can take it back, but for the defending team to win, they have to hold it for a full week. Only individual teams can take the throne room, not alliances. So the block can't collectively take the throne room. The good guys can't collectively take the throne room.
And I think what they mean by that is that they have to decide which one of them is holding it, and people from that team has to stay in. Whereas, so when they're saying they can't take it as alliance, I think what they're saying is they can't just decide, oh, like the good guys hold it. Like we're going to put the NPCs in for a couple of hours while the Princess Posse goes out and does things, and then we're going to switch.
Right. Well, and at this point, the rules haven't changed as they do later, where all the losers just die, which is not how faction wars normally works.
Okay, so now that we have that background covered, we want to go through more chronologically from the chapter. So there is an update to the Bedlam Bride quest, and that update is that the quest is not completed. She is in the city, but she is still trapped. And the way the AI describes that is she's still on the bus, but she hasn't actually gotten out into the city because she's still trapped.
The AI says something like, but you can win the quest if you just let her out. What's the worst that could happen?
What is the worst that can happen? But unfortunately, with the Bedlam bride. That is not a quest that's going to be completed. Quest failed.
Quest does end up failing in a very spectacular and fun way, though, that leads to a very interesting chapter that is very convoluted with a bunch of adjutants talking.
It is one of my favorites, and I
It,
can't wait to talk about it.
we do find out that 1,300 people died at the end of the eighth floor,
Ouch.
presumably from getting sucked up into the portals or however that works, which is a good bit. But like, honestly, with how batshit of a plan that was, like, that doesn't seem like too many.
No, and I mean, it is still a historic number that has gotten to the beginning of floor 9, but yeah, that was definitely a high risk, high reward plan.
Was. I mean, most people thought it just wasn't even gonna work. It's been pretty funny. Donut gets completely covered in crap. She like falls into this alleyway, like what face first into a bunch of mud. She's like, oh God.
Yeah, well, and my note, and one of the things that we've been trying to avoid for the podcast is talking about our cats too much because we know that that's not going to be interesting for most listeners. But I will say, as someone who owns cats, well, I don't own them; they live with me. But as someone who has cat roommates,
No, they don't live with you. You live with them.
that is 100% correct. Usually, when cats get dirty like this, they just completely lose their shit. They go and hide, they scratch you, they just meow at you until you help them. Donut is actually taking this extremely well.
Well, she's grown throughout the series because in the beginning of the series, she did not take it well. And every time she got covered in blood and gore, she was quite upset about it. And it was absolutely unacceptable.
Yeah, definitely. But for a cat to just be like, could I please get cleaned up as soon as possible? Like, this is amazing for a cat. Real cats do not act like this.
They do not. And then in a couple more pages, she gets covered in more guts and blood.
And I think that the way she is at the end of this book is, like, the worst she's gotten so far, so poor babe.
Well, fortunately, they have that really, really fancy shower that takes all of 10 seconds, and then you're sparkling, pristine clean, which honestly, if I could have that and I could have the bed where they just have to walk over it and they're completely rejuvenated, that would be so sweet.
It does show that it's really bad for your mental health, though, which is why there is that one scene, I think, in book 5 or 6 where Carl is like, "No, Donut, like, we need to go sit in a chair and, like, have normal sleep."
I need to go and just like unwind and actually chill for a bit and not just, I walked over the bed. I mean, that's cool, but it doesn't sound very relaxing.
It's not good for your brain.
Jonah and Carl have teleported in to Larracos, the city of dreams, and they don't really know where they are. Carl guesses that they're on one of the lower levels.
And there's still a poor part of town. Womp, womp, womp.
Yeah, unfortunately, even in the city of dreams.
Even in Magic NPC cities, there's still a poor part of town.
Yeah, I mean, that's just life, ain't it? There's always the rich and the poor.
Yeah, but they really destroyed the city by flooding it. They can see signs of that everywhere. The NPCs are working really hard to repair it, even though it's just going to get destroyed again.
Right. But I do think it's cool that the NPCs are repairing it, especially because at this point a lot of them have already been awakened and they kind of know the direction that things are heading. But regardless of that, they're still putting in a lot of teamwork and even repairing things like statues and stuff that are completely superficial. But I think that that shows that they have a lot of pride in their home.
Definitely. So they were gone for 4 days.
They were. And a lot happened in that time. And we get some updates from Quasar. He tells them that the orbit of Earth has turned into an absolute war zone. Quote, it's been a class 9 shit cyclone, unquote. And most of what's been going on is good for Carl, but some of it is going to itch like an infected ass tattoo.
Yeah, and then he gives a bunch of updates about the Vengeance of the Daughter TV show. And so far, that is a loose plot line where we have not come back to it. And, we've talked about Quasar being a good lawyer. So maybe he just did a really good job representing Carl's interest here and they dropped it. Maybe the AI didn't think it was amusing to rope them back into that and thought that let's call the main plot line for the intergalactic TV show was where the real action was. So he didn't want to rope Carl into some of that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Dream purchases Sensation Entertainment, who own the Vengeance of the Daughter TV show. We're going to explore this more later when we get to it, but I do think that the Dream owning Sensation Entertainment is part of what allows them to try and assassinate Carl.
Well, Odette does mention that everyone owns their own entertainment network and they are all using it to cheat.
Yes, that is absolutely happening. But I think that somehow Sensation Entertainment, the Dream, is able to use this to try and assassinate Carl. But they do that through getting information.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to agree to disagree there because I think that they already had substantial entertainment holdings that were enough for them to cheat.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely enough for them to cheat regardless. The cool thing that happens next in the chapter, well, I don't know if it's cool, but certainly interesting, is Carl doubles over in pain and he finds out that he has soul poisoning. And this soul poisoning is going to build up and it tells him that additional effects are going to happen to him, side effects. That is definitely some foreshadowing for what happens later in the book. That screws him over and almost gets him killed.
Yeah, and he was definitely supposed to learn his lesson here. And like, even the AI says, like, hey, you know better than that. And like, Carl beats himself up over it. Like, I knew I was supposed to do something about this, but I've been too busy. And I think some other interesting foreshadowing is that this chapter is where he starts blowing off his notifications and not reading them, which is also going to come back and bite him later.
So the soul poisoning, he's doubling over in pain and he finds out like, okay, I got to get this out right away. And the AI is like, you're trying to keep corrupted souls in fabric? That's a pretty dumb idea. Also, don't try and unequip this while it's full of soul power.
Yeah, for sure. And although he should have dealt with this before, you do see the strain that he's under because Donut has a very limited amount of time to pick a class, and she's trying to talk to him about it while he's trying to deal with the soul poisoning.
He's like trying to not show her that he's in pain. He's like, all right, yeah, good job. You you do that. That's important. Talk to Mordecai about it. I am curious because the AI is like, don't try and unequip your jacket. I wonder what happens if he does.
I think there would be a lot of explosions and not of a good kind. It might actually kill him. So
It could kill him and maybe a bunch of people around him. I mean, that would be my best guess is big boom.
big booms follow Carl around. But
They do.
yeah, the class picking part is hilarious, especially because the AI has Donut's number so hardcore and starts offering her accessories.
Ooh.
Ooh. And even after the crown of the sepsis whore, like, she has still not learned the not be sucked in by her accessories
She
lesson.
is. She's like, ooh, this one comes with a hat. It was very fun in the audiobook where she's like, what's a Gahilly suit? And I immediately was like, ooh, I know what that was. And Donut's gonna hate it.
Oh, poor babe. Yeah, there were some really funny comments in here. Definitely, she wanted to pick one based on the accessories, and Mordecai was like, "Do not get involved in God nonsense. Absolutely not."
There's enough God nonsense on this floor. You do not want to be getting involved with it. It was really funny. One of the classes she was offered, she's like, you, Halloween aficionado, comes with black lipstick and a box cutter for some reason.
Yeah, that's a really dark joke. Although I do want to say that the black lipstick was actually a point in its favor.
So right after this, going back to the soul poisoning, Carl's trying to figure out what am I going to do with this? Like, I can't attack someone. Safe room rules apply right now. So he finds a dead shark and decides to grab it and throw it up in the air and punch it.
I think this is hilarious, but a bit of a cop out.
Why do you think it's a cop out?
Because I think you should have had to, like, try to go find some NPC character or something like that. Like, I don't think that the soul poisoning should have been released into a dead corpse. I think that that's a bit cheating.
I don't think so because, like, with the Daughter's Kiss attack, like, I don't think that it necessarily needs to be a direct combat attack against an enemy. Because what if he wants to use it in more of a tactical way of like, oh, there's enemies in this bunker, so I'm gonna punch the wall to breach this bunker that they're in, not necessarily like attacking them directly.
I guess I viewed the soul poisoning as kind of like the blood bar, where it's a built-in check by the AI to make sure that, you are still killing things.
I guess so. I guess so, but I still think that it could be used in a tactical way, and I don't see why it shouldn't be, but alas. All right, so moving on, sushi smoothie. More ick on Donut that she's not happy about this one, but she still takes it pretty well. She's just like, Carl, can you warn me next time?
Extremely fair.
Very fair. So what happens from this point?
So also when they're picking classes, Ellie does pick a class that is queen, which makes her technically outrank Donut as princess, which she is very mature and supportive about.
Yeah,
That
she
definitely shows some growth.
does. She's like, oh, you're a Hellstorm Queen? That's great. I think that earlier in the series, if someone else had gotten a title of Queen, she would have found that to be appalling and very unacceptable. So this does show a lot of growth for her, and she's maturing a lot. It is really cool to see Donut, who basically at the beginning of the dungeon is a belligerent child, and she's starting to be like a very mature little adult cat.
Let's see how that continues throughout this book.
So we keep going through this chapter. They find out that they have suboptimal force levels, and there's only 58 soldiers in the Princess Posse right now. But it says that there are recruits waiting to be sworn in. And what was your assumption of hearing that?
Well, so there's other crawlers who are waiting to join the princess posse, but they can't do that until they actually make someone a general, and they have to do that by touching someone.
They do,
So Donut says that she wants to make Katia a general, but she doesn't know when she's going to actually be in the same place as her.
right? But this was also saying that they have recruits waiting to be sworn in. It was a bit of foreshadowing that pays off in a couple of chapters because we think like, oh, there's just a couple crawlers waiting, but actually it's tens of thousands of former crawlers. And that's, yeah, it's just great.
Well, and it just shows even early on that like they already have a to-do list and it's already getting stressful and we're still in the first chapter.
Right.
So basically, there are 10 teams, and this is where Team Retribution, which is the NPC team, sends them a truce. And Carl says, before we accept the truce, and Donut has already accepted the truce. And Carl does start to get on to her about this, but she's like, hey, I've actually been reading the rules. I was expecting this notification and I was prepared for it. And Carl is like,
And did you have time to do that?
yes. And Donut's response is just, well, I don't spend as much time in the bathroom as you do.
Maybe, Carl, maybe you need to get checked out. I think you have IBS.
Carl having IBS is a running joke throughout the series, which is hilarious.
It is definitely a running joke throughout the series, and like everybody notices and knows Carl's like going to the bathroom all the time. But I don't think they actually have an idea of why, because I don't think any crawlers know about the existence of the cookbook at all, even as a concept or something that exists. And so, like, him having some kind of resource like this that helps him out so much isn't even on any of the other crawlers' radar.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when Donut has complained so many times that that is what he picked from the carousel, I think that that makes it even more clear.
Yeah, absolutely. So right after this, they accept the truce offer and names their alliance the Good Guys, and then Gravy Boat renames it to something else. And Donut's like, "What the hell?" And Carl says, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like Juicebox is probably gonna murder him pretty soon, anyways." But she can't. She can't murder him because as a NPC and not someone from outside of the dungeon, she doesn't have access to all of the features of the Warlord menus. So she needs Gravy Boat.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, we start getting announcements from Cascadia, and Carl notes that she is either drunk or high, possibly both.
She's definitely drunk, and this is something that she just keeps going downhill throughout this book, getting more and more upset and having a bit of a mental breakdown. And I love that. It's very funny.
It is very funny. This is where they start going over what Fraction Wars usually looks like and how it usually goes. And I mean, obviously, from a plot point, they had to have their own team to make a good book, but it sounds like it would be very boring otherwise.
What, like if the crawlers didn't end up having their own team?
Yeah, definitely, because they would just have to join one of the existing teams. And it is interesting that one of the things that Cascadia says is that you might get remembered fondly for employment by one of the teams if you fight with distinction for them, and that that should factor into your decision. But we know when you take a deal that your contract might be, 15, 20 seasons long.
100 seasons.
Yeah, so I'm just curious, how long the memories of these warlords or these entities would be as far as remembering crawlers and helping them out later.
Yeah, so, like, is the dream gonna remember how nice you were and how you joined their team in 1,000 years?
Yeah, they say so, but I'm a little skeptical about it. So technically, crawlers might not choose to join Carl. And I will say that we've already had some people comment on his lack of planning overall, about how everything is always about him and it's always the Carl show, and that he makes, reckless decisions. So I don't think we encounter anyone who decides to join the other teams throughout this book, but that is an option to them.
It is, and we do find out that some crawlers just decide to go and hide in the woods and see if they can just kinda camp out and coast until the end of the floor. I don't think that works out for anybody. The rest of Cascadia's announcement is just going over the rules of faction wars, which we already established at the beginning of this episode. At the end, she mentions that stairwells will open up when war is over or there are 30 hours left for the floor to collapse. And right after this is where Bree's favorite character pops up.
Hey, Baroness Victory. I love
Eh,
her.
Why?
I just think she's a really cool character, and I really like kind of the intricacies of like laws and rules. I actually got into law school, but it was during the 2008 recession, so I decided not to go. But it's something that I'm really passionate about, and just the way that the rules are interpreted and the way that she finds loopholes for them is honestly what I kind of love about law in general.
Yeah, absolutely. But does she really find loopholes or
Oh,
is
she
she,
does.
I guess so. I guess so. I know Baroness Victory is great. She's just such a badass.
She's so matter of fact. I mean, I really like all the orcs. I like Baroness Victory and Princess Formidable a lot, so
You like Stalwart?
no, but you're not supposed to, like, that's pretty clear.
He does make for some pretty fantastic dialogue with Donut, though. So Carl is still bald.
It is very upsetting to Mongo.
It's very upsetting to Mongo. Donut will not have Carl bald, and he looks very weird without eyebrows. And everyone looks weird without eyebrows. Go and just look up like celebrities without eyebrows. It's very strange looking.
But, I mean, other people laugh at him, and, like, this is definitely not just, like, Donut being ridiculous, like, other people see him and they're like, "You need to deal with this right away."
He absolutely needs to deal with it right away. If I lost all of my hair and eyebrows, I would be quite upset about it.
I'd be quite upset about you losing that too.
Sure would. So that's almost the end of the chapter. And then we get a breakdown of Donut's class, which is Deathbed Hellcat.
We do want to read this passage out because it is important for the rest of the book, so great, isn't it? It's a long range sniper and assassin class. It doesn't come with many new spells, but the range on all my existing spells is quadrupled, and my dexterity is much higher. The odds of one of my spells inflicting an insta kill is higher too. Oh, and I can go invisible at will, and on top of it, I get to keep most of my spells from the last floor. But best of all, it comes with a hat and a ghillie suit for shadowing.
And a ghillie suit. I love it. Something that I kind of want to see is like a rendering, or not a rendering, but I want to see someone draw Donut with like all of her gear by the end of book 7 with her crupper, with all of her bracelets, like with her cloak that she gets, with the ghillie suit on. Like she just must look kind of ridiculous, but also totally decked out.
I know, but cats don't even like it if you put Halloween costumes or like bows on them, and she is wearing so many things.
She is wearing a lot of gear.
Yeah, definitely. And just one other thing that I wanted to mention before we closed out this episode is when I was going through and researching this chapter, I was almost completely reading stuff in The Butcher's Masquerade because the 6th and the ninth floor really are connected to each other, and the 5th book and the 7th book are really connected to each other. while book 6, The Bedlam Bride, has a lot of intergalactic policy and like AI implications as far as, most of the foreshadowing for this book is far as what happens in the dungeon, not outside the dungeon, is actually in book 5.
It is. Like the way that the Scolopendra levels work is very interesting, and they are all interconnected in a very, very serious way. We found out all the way at the end of this book in the epilogue, something very interesting happens, which, I know we're a spoiler podcast, but that is super intricate and complicated that we'll be talking about in many episodes from now. We made it through chapter 1. We're here. We did it.
Heck yes, but I am excited because a lot of my favorite chapters are in this book.
I think almost all of my favorite chapters are in this book, as much as I love the rest of the series, like this inevitable ruin. Chef's kiss.
That's why we started with this book.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and look forward to having you join us next week for chapter 2. New achievement. You've listened to another episode of The Apocalypse Will Be Podcasted. We release new episodes every Sunday. Visit us on our website to find all our podcast platforms, rss.com/podcasts/The Apocalypse Will Be Podcasted, or follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the iHeartRadio app, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on Facebook at The Apocalypse Will Be Podcasted, and on Instagram at Apocalypse Will Be Podcasted. Now, get out there and like, comment, and subscribe.